Welcome back to McKillop Life. My name is Amber, and I've been on the hunt for a sandwich bread that works with freshly milled whole flour that my family would eat, that's tasty, that's soft, that's not really compromising in the whole freshly milled aspect. And I think I found the recipe. So let's get into it. This recipe is called whole wheat bread. I would call it a honey wheat because it's sweetened with honey. You can definitely taste it when you're eating it. I've made it once before, and surprisingly enough, the recipe is not actually made for freshly milled flour. But in reading through the recipe, she often talks about the freshness of your flour and how important that is. And I was like, how fresh can it get if you use freshly milled? So I thought I'd give it a try. And like I said, it was a success. It worked out very well. When I've tried working with freshly milled flour for sandwich loaves before, I get crumbliness, I get dryness, I get heaviness. It's not appealing. So I would consider this an enriched bread because we are going to be putting milk in it. I thought there was an egg in it, but it's actually an optional egg wash, which I didn't do. But it definitely has eggs. So the ingredients I have all laid out here. We have salt, yeast, butter, apple cider vinegar. Also, you could use lemon juice. This is an alternative. Honey, warm water, warm milk, and then I have my wheat berries weighed out. In the recipe, there's going to be two sections. One is going to be for the sponge, and one is going to be for the dough. And there's two different weights of flour that she puts in there. So I weighed out the first weight in my bowl, tared my scale, and weighed out the second weight. So I know this is the full amount of berries. And then she says more if needed, so I just put a little scoop of extra berries in there for good luck. So I'm excited to do this because the first loaf was delicious. With the second go around here, trying it out again, my goal is to spend a little bit more time shaping it and actually follow the proofing time better because my loaf was lumpy and spread out and had her big muffin top on it. So to me that has to do with shaping and proofing, not because the dough wasn't great. So let's get started. And the first thing I'm going to do is grind my berries. So for the sponge, she calls, I'm assuming it's a woman, the recipe calls for 260 grams, and then for the dough itself, it calls for an additional 173 grams. So here's all my berries, and I'm going to get it going. So in general, with working with yeast, when you're talking about liquids going in, the rule of thumb is 110 degrees or cooler. If you go over 110, you risk the possibility of killing your yeast. So at one point, my water and my milk was 110, but we had some technical difficulties with my microphone, and I like using it because it helps cut out the background noise around me, like the dryer's going right now. So hopefully the microphone's working, so the dryer's not bothering you. So the first step is going to be whisking together our sponge ingredients in our stand mixer and then letting it sit for an hour. So let's work on that. So for the sponge, I'll be adding 1 cup of warm water. Like I said, 110 degrees is what you're aiming for. Mine is going to be a little bit less than that, but it'll be fine. I'll be proofing and rising and doing all that sort of thing on a seed mat, so it'll be plenty warm. And then we're going to put 1/3 cup of whole milk, also warmed. We're doing 7 grams of instant yeast. Then our 260 grams of flour, which I weighed out on my scale again. And this is the first bread recipe that has told me to whisk it to begin with, so that's interesting. scrape down the sides. I would love to have one of the attachments that have the scraper on the side of the paddle so it automatically scrapes down for you. But I was actually gifted one and it doesn't fit my bowl. My bowl is a different size because this is, I think it's considered a, I don't know, a professional. It's not the standard mixer that you get out of the store. If you can see, it raises from a lever, goes up and down like that. This does not tip up, and this bowl is bigger than the normal one that you can find. So, a lot of the nifty attachments, you have to pay attention to the bowl size when you're going for them. But that's a dream, to one day have a mixer that has a lifting thing so it's easier to get access to the bowl, or even maybe there's one mixers that have the mixer on the side of it so you have access to the whole thing. I don't know. But I'm using what I have and I'm grateful for what I have. There's just things you have to work around. Okay, that is plenty mixed for this stage because you're really just trying to incorporate the yeast into the warm fluids. So I'm just going to scrape this down again. Like I said, I'm going to put it over on my seed mat with a damp cloth over it to keep it from drying out and let it sit for an hour and we'll see how it does. So this is what it looks like right now, and we'll see if we can tell by holding it up later about the rising. Dampen my towel. This is just a simple tea towel, maybe considered a diaper, I don't remember. It looks nasty, it's actually clean. That is a stain left over from squeezing out potatoes. I'd love to know how to get that out, but that's just what it looks like now. I suppose I could bleach it, but I rarely ever bleach laundry. So, on the heating mat, over here, the heating mat, with the kombucha for 1 hour, and we'll check in and see how it's doing. An hour has passed, so it's time to take a look at the bread, or the sponge at this point. So that looks happy. That is definitely risen, probably more than double. So let's take this over to the stand mixer and move on to the next step. And this time I'm putting in the dough hook because we're going to make a dough now. Okay, so we are going to be incorporating the rest of the ingredients into our sponge, and then we'll be mixing those together to bring them together for 3 minutes, and then after that we'll be kneading it for 8 to 10. So, dough hook. And we have 3 tablespoons honey, 3 tablespoons butter, a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, 1 1/4 teaspoon salt, and then the remaining flour, which is 173 grams. And I'll definitely be linking the recipe below so you can get stuck into it and see what you think about it yourself. So the first thing I'm going to do is add my softened butter. Apple cider vinegar, honey, I'm going to add my salt now. come on over here. So it's still pretty loose. I'm not seeing a big clump of butter running around in it yet anymore. I'm going to start incorporating the flour. Lots of flour with the lump of dough sitting in the middle, working it in. Since the dough's not formed yet and there's just a lot of flour still, this would not be considered part of the kneading stage. This is just mixing in the ingredients. At some point I'm going to stop it and scrape down the sides. How about now? Okay. So it's mostly incorporated now. So I'm going to start the time now for kneading, and I'll just watch it, and if it still seems too sticky, then I'll add a little bit of flour. They say add 1 tablespoon at a time. So we'll see. But let's start the timer. They say 8 to 10 minutes. Let's do 8. 8 minutes. And here's my little bit of extra flour waiting around. So 4 minutes in, we're still pretty loose. It's starting to come together, but still loose. I'm going to add like a little bit of flour. Okay, I'm going to call it. In the course of doing that, I probably added about 1/4 of a cup of flour, just 1 tablespoon at a time until I was able to pull away. I was reading the instructions and it actually said in mixing your dough, before you even get to the kneading side, it should be cleaning the edges of the bowl, which is interesting. Don't know if I've ever had it do that for me before. I'm just happy if it cleans the edges of my bowl by the end of the kneading. So I've incorporated 1/4 of a cup of flour, and it's cleaning the edges of the bowl now. So at this point, it's time for my first rise. So I'm going to take it off of here, and it wants me to take the dough and have the dough lightly covered in oil on all sides in the bowl for the first rise. So, first thing is to get the dough off the hook. This is definitely stickier than I remember that last go around being. But all the recipes caution you about adding too much flour and how it's better to be on the stickier side, so I'm going to trust the process and say it worked out nicely last time, let's hope it works out this time. But it's not sticking to my fingers, and it is soft, so that all fits within their description. I really do like these silicone plastic scrapers because they get into the bowl so nicely. Whenever I have a little extra flour I've ground, I put it in the freezer and mark it. So this is freshly ground flour from a while ago. I use that for dusting surfaces or like this, incorporating a little bit in if I need it. Here's some olive oil to spray. Put my hands down because with a wet dough, wet hands help. Okay. It is a nice, soft, slightly tacky dough, so it's very encouraging, and it has a lot of good structure to it, if that makes sense. So that is what we look like before our first rise. So let's go put it on the seed mat. I'm not going to bring the camera over as my hands are oily now. So that's all covered with my damp towel. Wash the oil off my hands and set a timer. It says anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours until it doubles in size. And I have my loaf pan out here and I greased it up with some shortening. So it's ready and waiting for us. So I'll see you back in an hour and a half to 2 hours. My timer has gone off for an hour and a half, so let's peek at the bread. Or dough. It's not bread yet. It's but most definitely doubled in size. So we are ready to shape our loaf. So this is the part that I said need to focus a little bit more on this time around. But yes, I'm supposed to shape my loaf next. So with my surface, let's just wipe it down. I actually want it to be slightly damp, so it doesn't need to be perfectly dry. And we got our very, very fluffy dough. Smells yeasty and yummy. And let me get a trickle of water going. I know people do it with flour and that sort of thing, but I find wet dough, it works better with wet. Wet or sticky dough, wet hands, just works better. So I like this little gadget. Rather than a full-on rolling pin, you can just do this and work your dough. I'm sure I saw it on some YouTube bread channel and got excited about it, and I'm glad I bought it. I forget I have it, so I forget to use it, but when I use it, I appreciate having it. So just like with the sourdough, we're making layers within our bread, which is called lamination. People talk about lamination most with when you're putting things between layers, like butter, but it's still trying to add structure to your bread and reduce massive air pockets, just affect how the crumb looks. So this is the method I know for loaves. So you do 3 folds, make it into a big rectangle, and then fold it in on itself. I think that's a letter fold, not sure. So making sure there's pressed out, and then we're going to start working on the roll. So if you watch the sourdough video, this is the same way that I did my loaf then, but at the end with the sourdough, I try to encourage it to be a circle, and here I'm going to encourage it to be a rectangle, because this folding method is really meant for loaves, not rounds. I know there's a special name for the rounds. Is it boule? I'm not sure. But here, if I were to put this in there now, it'd have these things all trying to separate out. So we're going to try to fold these folds in and around and down so they don't separate out when it's baking. So all of my seams are at the bottom, not on the sides or the top. So that's my shaping. Smooth, no major seams, and into the loaf pan it goes, and try to press it out a little bit. I don't think that's really necessary because of how much this bread likes to rise, but it makes me feel like I'm doing something. So now it's set a timer for, I believe, another hour and a half. Let's see. Second rise. Oh, actually, second rise is only an hour. And you want it to be an inch above the pan. So here, that's that. And you can see it might be like a ½ inch under the pan right now. So I'm going to put this back over here, put it back on the seed starting mat, and covered it with my damp towel. And I'll set a timer for an hour and come check on it. I don't know why I thought the second rise was 2 hours. An hour has passed, so let's check on the bread. It is way more than an inch. Yeah. So I think letting it rise for an hour is a bit too much because of how fast it rises for me. Because that's quite a lot more, and it's going to rise even more in the oven, so we may get a similar look to the last time. I'm not sure. But I have my oven preheating because when I walked over here to film, out of the corner of my eye I did see how big that was. So the oven's preheating to 350, and according to the recipe, it says bake 36 to 40 minutes and then check for the internal temperature to be at least 200. So I think I'll go for the 36 and get my thermometer set to alarm at 200, and we'll see how we go. So the oven is preheated, so my massive loaf of bread gets to go into it at 350. I think the shaping's better, but I think I also, we'll see. We'll see what the shape looks like when it comes out. So I'll set a timer for 35 minutes and then poke it with my thermometer that's set for 200. See you then. So that's at 35 minutes, it's only 180. So let's give some foil. And 5 more minutes, we'll check it again. 5 minutes have gone off, let's check it again. We're at 195, and the sheet does say 195 to 200, so I'm going to call it and take it out. Now, I don't know if I have a picture. I think I have a picture of the previous loaf I can put up on the screen so you can compare how it looks. So I think the overall shape's better. It's not all wavy and it's not hanging over as much, but it's still massive, which really makes me wonder if this could make 2 loaves. But it says yield 1 loaf. And it also says, where was it? 9x5 loaf pan. Isn't this a 9x5? No?
It's only 4 wide.
Okay. So next time I'll try using a larger one, but I didn't think. I can go massive and it'll be tiny on there. Or I have these two.
Because they're smaller.
No, that nests inside of this. So the bottom one is going to be the biggest one we have. Which,
It's only slightly bigger.
well, the difference between 8 and 9 is only an inch. So next time I will try using this one. I really prefer this pan because it's so nicely non-stick. It just is a nice pan to work with. And I also like this one. I just don't prefer this make of pan, so I don't tend to use it. Actually, I don't even know if it's mine. So, see, comes out. It's a little bit of stuff to clean, but that's just because I oiled it, so it has a little bit of stuff. If I didn't oil it, I bet you it wouldn't even need cleaning. But this is called the USA pan, and I like it. And it has a good weight to it, so you don't feel like you're going to be burning your food, whereas this it feels much lighter. So maybe by next time, I'll look into seeing what a 9x5 USA pan would cost. I don't know. I don't know. But it's bread, it's tasty, it's massive, it's made from whole milled flour. I'm getting very tired. I'm excited to have another loaf in the house. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you're curious or interested in it, take a chance to try it out. Like I said, the video or the recipe itself just calls for whole wheat flour. It doesn't ask you to mill it yourself. So, until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day. Feel free to like and subscribe. Bye!